Welcome to the Garage Grit Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Hurlock of AA Shop Marketing. Our hope is to unite shop owners to tackle common stress points and challenges that they're experiencing within the auto repair shop space. Our mission is to guide you towards the best solutions for your shop. So tune in, join the conversation, and let's move your business forward. Welcome to the Garage Grit Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Hurlock, and this show is brought to you by AA Shop Marketing, a digital marketing company for repair shops. And we're thankful for them to be able to take care of the cost of running this podcast, which has the goal of helping as many repair shops out there as possible. And today we're going to be talking about alternate revenue streams for repair shops. What can we do to improve or augment the revenue in downtimes or just overall to improve the general cash flow of the business? So today we've got two different guests. We've got Tyson and Bill with us from two different shops, from New York and from Tyson in Florida. Let me just jump right in. And Bill, why don't you tell us a little bit about you, explain your shirt, and also tell us about the size of your shop and tell us about the area that you're around. Because when people listen in, they like to say, oh, that shop sounds like the type of area that I'm currently servicing. And so they'll pay extra attention to you. That might be the case. So Bill, start us off. Tell us a little bit about. That is fun. So actually, I've had a few conversations with a guy named Luke who owns a body shop in New York, but he lives full time in Vegas. Wow. I got the sense that he is situated in Vegas. And yeah, so I found that really interesting. But that's the world that we live in potentially, right? That's maybe the best way to not find yourself underneath the car turning wrenches and whatnot is to not be there.
Awesome. That's the only way.
Right? True Fix is a repair shop and a body shop. Is that correct?
Collision repair.
Yeah. And you're going to be well-versed at adding to this conversation is alternate revenue streams. Now, the majority of our audience and the majority of our guests have been mechanical repair side of things and exclusively mechanical repair side of things. This will be a good conversation. Sure. Okay. Tyson, tell us about you and your shop. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, my name's Tyson Fisher. I manage and own a business here in Gainesville, Florida called Star Import Service. We're a small shop with 3 techs and 1 service manager. We specialize in only Mercedes-Benz and Sprinters. My grandparents started the business in 1984. I took it over in January of 2017.
How did you get here?
Yeah. No, so I'm originally from Denver, Colorado, like we were talking about before the show. My grandparents started a business here in Gainesville, Florida called Star Import Service back in 1980. They chose to start only Mercedes-Benz right from the beginning because my grandfather had only worked at Mercedes-Benz.
Okay.
I grew up completely different background. I graduated high school in Denver, Colorado.
You've got the robot vacuum cleaner.
Yes.
Yeah, I love those actually.
So when I was 14, I actually started working at Five Guys in Denver, Colorado, or in Highlands Ranch, Colorado, actually. By the time I was 18, I was actually general manager there. Then around 20 years old, the franchise was going through some changes. I was actually running like 4 or 5 stores at about 20 years old, and I was working like a dog, like 70 hours a week. I made kind of poor decisions in my own time as well. I was at a point where I realized I couldn't go any further up at Five Guys without a degree. And my grandparents owned this business down in Florida. My dad and my aunt didn't really have anything involved in the business. I saw it as an opportunity. So my grandparents brought me down here. I started working for them in January of 2017. While I was here in Gainesville, I got both a bachelor's and a master's in accounting at the University of Florida. And then I actually was supposed to go work for Deloitte up in Atlanta. And our business just honestly kept chugging along and doing really well. COVID hit us pretty hard. I learned a lot. It made me involved. That's why my hands are so dirty now.
Okay.
I've realized the true growth of the business potential. I've been doing this now for 3 years full time on top of the 5 years I was going to college and working for my grandparents. I've loved every day of it. We've just continued to grow. It's been one of the craziest phenomenons I've seen in my own little business. My grandparents, it was beat up, and I realized the business rides or die. It dies on the people that are working there every day. My grandpa just got tired, and I was happy I was able to come in and fill that void. And that's how I ended up manager and CFO at Star Report.
That's really interesting. And something that you said that I want to drill on is, and not related to our topic today, but just in general, the number of times where I've called on a repair shop and I hear, the people's attitude, the general attitude here, or the people's attitude here is just, blah, we're here, we're punching a clock. And they're not going to grow with that mentality. It's like you said, your shop thrives or survives or not survives based on the attitude in the shop, the people that are there, not just the owner, but the owner is a reflection of the rest of it. That's
everything goes downstream.
Right.
Water goes downstream.
Right. And so if you're excited about something, and potentially, now that actually is related to today's topic, because if you actually add an alternate revenue stream and you get people excited about a particular idea, then that can actually raise the bar for everybody. We're excited about this new thing. Sometimes that new shiny object is part of that video game dopamine rush, but hey, let's play on it a little bit. Tyson, I don't know that I asked you before. Are you a video gamer? Are you a gamer? What's going on here? Are you?
No, I'm casual. I'll play Madden and NHL if it's cold and rainy outside, or if I'm not feeling well. But if I'm able to go outside and enjoy the outdoors, I like building things. I like working on stuff. I was able to buy, actually, it's funny, I drove out to Long Island to buy a boat on Memorial Day weekend of 2023. Best deal I've ever gotten on a boat, actually, because it wasn't running. Bought it for $3,000 and brought it down here, and it's been the best deal ever. I bought a steal of a bass boat. I'm not as much a gamer. I'm more of what you call like a casual with sports kind of thing. I love football. I think that's my main thing. So anytime football comes around, I'm for watching football. And if I'm not watching football, I'm trying to play with people.
And that's been the justification for the video game happening in our house, is that the only video game that for Mario Kart and Madden are the two video games that are currently allowed in our house, but is my son's passion about football. It's all the time. And so starting this weekend, it's 2 different football leagues every Sunday. He goes from one to the other. And so that's
maybe 2. Good strategy.
And I've been told by other dads that they can see my son's wheels turning as he's playing. He understands what's supposed to happen and whatnot. He's not playing tackle yet. It's all flag for now.
A noggin.
I'm not ready for, I think that's coming this fall. I think that's coming.
Good.
But we'll see. He's only 9, or turning 10 soon, but still. Anyway, the video game culture it goes too far. The dopamine rush, it's a whole thing. But maybe we can play off it with the bright, shiny object of an alternative revenue stream and get people excited about this new thing that we're talking about, and get our team, again, some new energy in our team. And maybe we can play off of that. But Bill, when he was talking about the boat, I saw you had an adverse reaction to it felt like you wanted to get something off your chest about buying boats. Is there something that you wanted to go there with?
What I know about boats is, and I'm not a huge boat guy. My partner is a boat guy, but I can tell you my belief in boats. Growing up, my dad had boats. I've always looked at it as a hole in the ocean you just keep throwing money into. So when I somebody came to Long Island for a boat, probably involves a good amount of money, deal or not. And if you paid the money up front, likely you're going to be paying more money going forward.
Hey, I put $4,500 into it, and it's a nice Yamaha 175 bass boat. So I'm not gonna lie.
All right, let's jump right into this alternative revenue streams, especially with COVID in our rearview mirror potentially, but also with slow seasons. Tyson, you're in Gainesville, Florida, so I don't even know, does preseason baseball add the influx of people coming, add to make it a busier season for you? Maybe that's a side question to the idea that the reason that we want to have alternate revenue streams is because whether it's slow seasons for our location or our area, we don't know what's going to happen next. Just augment the core. Is there an up and a down season in Gainesville, whether it's because of preseason or something else?
Yeah, no. So I would honestly say, at least in our region, the up season and down season really goes with the university. By and large, our lowest months tend to be June, July, and then December. Obviously, December in the automotive business is generally down. It's one of those things where we augment that with some I purchased some other additional equipment that we do on the side. It's one of those things where we'll buy some equipment at auction that we know has known problem, but it's on things that we've worked on before. So we'll basically get like a good used vehicle and get some of the good parts out of it, strip it for some of its good parts, and then junk the rest. Out of that one vehicle alone, you can get thousands of dollars in metal and in used parts.
So, are you putting those parts in other cars?
Yes.
For the opportunity to save money, or what does that look like?
Yeah, so there's a couple of ways you can go about it, and Bill can probably relate to this as well. There's some vehicles that parts are unavailable, whether it's due to age, whether it's due to manufacturer, supply. There's a whole nature of it. And there's always somebody with some need at some price point. You know what I'm saying? And whether it's used parts, some people do get sometimes used part, like a used seat control module on an old W210 Mercedes. Those are pretty common. I've seen those be very useful. You know what I mean? I do pick those up very cheap, and we can work on them, get them working. So there's some things that are just not available, and you have to work around people's budgetary constraints as well. There's also aspects of it. You get a ton of scrap metal from a lot of those things as well. There's a lot of elements to it. You get wheels, used wheels. There's so many times I get customers just passing through Florida. Maybe it's just where we're at regionally off of I-75. Okay. We get people passing through that just need a wheel, and we just have a wheel. So
right.
It's one of those things where you take what you can get and work with it. What we've done.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. And again, there's a good example of this is not your core. It's not I don't even, what percentage of your business would you say is those extra side metal pieces or replacement parts that people don't want to pay for?
It's a small percentage, 2-3%, but it adds up.
And helps a lot out in the slower seasons.
Yeah, exactly. It's bottom line. There's a couple of cars that we are renting for storage right now as well. There's one that's in an estate. There's another one where the gentleman just doesn't have space to have his home, and so he pays us to store it. You know what I mean? And is part of that agreement. We keep it running and keep the battery charged up, and if he needs it, he comes and picks it up and goes from there. So there's additional elements of doing it. There's sometimes you can even take a valuable thing you can do in the slow times. Even it's what I think going forward is you can train when it slows down. You can really tear down an old used engine. There's a lot of advantages to when it slows down. You
training in the slow period.
Yeah. And ultimately you can use that as an alternate revenue stream, because now you're teaching people that didn't have that knowledge before things that
charging for training. You could absolutely have that as a piece, so that you're going to be slow every June, July, or every December in your case, right? So you actually coordinate with whether it's tech schools or just to advertise a training program. You could potentially actually have a more formal setup with that. Bill, what do you think about just grabbing the spare parts and the metal from older cars?
Yeah, just to back up, I think that's a really interesting point, because I think the important thing that we almost think about, and I've done numerous amounts of content on how physically slow the industry is. So when you talk about the topic of alternate revenue, that's what every shop, whether it's collision or mechanical, is thinking right now. When you mention a thing like spare parts, spare metal, you touched on training. That's what my go-to is. As soon as I see spare parts, spare metal, immediately go to welding training, or I use it for training trade school students. Or me as a veteran, I train veterans that want to get into the industry, because let's face it, that's another big problem that our industry faces is attrition.
Yeah.
And so, Bill, are you doing that training as a give back to the community, or are you doing that training as a break even cost or a profit center?
It's a tough balance. When you're thinking about the balance between loss of revenue versus giving back, I look at that not only as a give back to the community, but I also look at that as sort of me investing into the future, not only in the community, but as on my business alone. I know what it's like as a veteran I know as a veteran looking for work, but I know veterans and trade school students, us as shop owners, mechanical or collision, we need to embrace that we need to change, and we need to bring new business and new employees in. So it's just another side of the loss of revenue. My simple thought on revenue lost in a slow period is this business is cyclical, especially. So yes, you do things that you normally wouldn't do. For example, I'm fixing an ice cream truck right now, which I typically would never do. But it's when it comes to training, it's my investment into my future. And if I have an empty shop, now is exactly the time why I would do that.
Yeah. And I'm thinking about that ice cream truck, but I also want you to jump in about the slow periods. What slow periods are you experiencing in New York? Do you have down months?
Yeah, it's pretty rough. I have clients and friends all over the country, and it's I would say more so for the collision side, slow everywhere. Slower, at least slower than normal. The ones that are really busy right now are extreme outliers. And I'm talking from California to New York that I speak to on a daily basis. Mechanically, in my experience, it's busier, but the effects on the lack of business for the collision industry is parallel to mechanical, in my opinion. Because just let's face it, interest rates, insurance rates are high, which drive the collision business. But now you have mechanical, which is almost another set of clientele, but no one has money, at least in my opinion. So when you're billing people out, and Tyson, I'm sure will agree, those things that they would typically, in a good economy, I would say, typically they would say, yes, do it all. But now it's more, get it to the point where it's running.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, no. So one thing that I think that kind of goes along, so we're both the mechanical, so that kind of helps us. On COVID, I wish I'd been able to take advantage a little bit more of the buying and selling of cars. We just didn't have enough resources at the time, but we were able to. It's one of those things I learned a very valuable business lesson at that time. Interest rates go down, man, those cars start selling like hotcakes. And Brad, you and I were talking about earlier, I've noticed in this industry, the price range of the targets on selling cars. And this kind of goes with what Bill's saying about collision being a little bit slow. These vehicles are so technologically advanced now that they're starting to total out so many more vehicles, which is going to ultimately slow down the work in collision, because instead of them doing the work, they're totaling the vehicle out and then either selling it at auction, or somebody will turn it around. But there's only a few states where you can actually go get a salvage title and then legally reroad the vehicle. I think you can balance a lot of different parts of this business. We have some cars that are more classic, and then we have cars that are more daily drivers that I try to keep between $5,000 and $20,000. You know what I mean? And the reason why is because I found that there to be a lot more buy and sell at that price point. And so for me, it's a little bit easier to get customers, and the car I can guarantee too. So I tend to be a little bit picky about cars and sell.
So you said a couple different things that kind of lead me to, if you're a shop owner and you're thinking about alternate revenue streams, step number one is, what do I have? You got to take an inventory of what you had extra space, so you could actually offer warehousing or rental agreements. You could actually store the older cars or those parts. You could actually potentially have a lot for the used cars. But the other thing that you said that people don't really realize is there's a little bit of a bureaucratic barrier to selling cars.
Yes.
And so you need to be very careful for your particular municipality, your particular state, that you're complying with those rules when it comes to selling cars. And I imagine that doesn't just apply to car sales, but probably other aspects of alternate revenue streams as well. You want to make sure that you've got those ducks in a row. How long have you been selling cars? How long have you had a license? And we'll assume that's the moment that you started selling cars.
I don't know exactly when my grandfather got the selling license.
Okay, good.
I'm going to assume in the early 90s or late 90s, maybe even 2000s. But I know they really did well on selling cars from about late 90s through 2008, 2009. 2008, 2009 hit them pretty hard. But it was interesting because when I was analyzing at least our books going back to then, is they got trapped with a good amount of inventory on the used car side, but the mechanical side picked up. So I've found the customers that I have are only doing the little that they need, but that customer from Mercedes-Benz, a local dealership, is going to shop around and is going to find my shop. There's only a limited range in our area. It's one of those where I think you can really, if you do the selling right, which we have notary, we have our notary license, so we can essentially do the notarization in-house. The DMV is literally 2 minutes away from us, so we can drop off all the paperwork to them. We only buy and sell cars that we have a clean title to. So it's one of those things where If you keep your parameters to how you do parts of your business very strict, you won't turn as many as the guys who only sell cars all day.
And you don't need to. This is an alternate, an additional revenue stream to augment the slow periods or whatnot, not specifically to change your core, your direction.
Exactly.
So yeah, so you got to keep that
I know
in
in
mind.
Florida, if you sell more than 3 cars a year, you're legally responsible to have that dealer license. They tend to be like, if you buy and sell 3 cars for resale, you legally have to have that license, but you can actually sell up to 3 without a license.
Up to 3.
Yeah, so it's very interesting. There's a lot of little intricacies I definitely learned as I went with my grandparents' business.
Yeah.
But you do, that's the only way to do it.
No, Mr. Officer or whoever the regulator is, I didn't sell that car. My mechanic sold that car. I sold these 3. He sold those 3.
Right.
And see, look, we actually paid to have the title transferred in his name before he sold it. Yes, 2 minutes before, but still.
Just a day before. It's
The fishy going on here. You go around the system, but you have 5 guys, 15 cars. No, the answer in Florida is 3. And you said it's up to 3. If you sell 3, can you get in trouble? Or
I think that's
4,
the
you get in
limit.
trouble.
I think
3
3
is the
is
limit. Yeah, interesting.
I think that's what they consider like a reasonable for a mechanic shop to,
Okay.
because they don't want to completely shut out just somebody who's just getting started.
And again, that's in Florida. Like you've got to figure out what's
Everything different everywhere. Yeah.
What's that?
There's some states where if you even have the intent to sell, you need the license. So there's you buy a car with the intent to.
But something else that you said, talking about how fast the cars are considered totaled because of the recalibrations and whatnot. I know of several shops who have augmented their revenue by setting up ADAS in their shop. Hey, let me cut in real quick. Are you wondering what your next marketing step is? Well, you don't have to figure it out on your own. The entire premise of this show is that we're trying to help repair shop owners. And in that same spirit of helping first, I will give you your next actionable step that's going to boost sales and boost that car count in your shop. To find out more, go to aashopmarketing.com/help or click in the link in the show notes below. Now, back to the episode.
You're right.
But when I heard it, I'm like, that doesn't sound right. Am I doing it wrong? But anyway, because it didn't sound like an accent thing. It didn't sound like they were just from Boston or New York or down south. It was significantly different. It was Otis or something. I don't know. Anyway, but with the recalibration of ADAS being a thing, right? I know of some shops who have jumped into it, and I flinch when I hear that because I know that it is a significant investment to do it correctly. And if you don't do it correctly, you're talking about a significant liability issue on your plate. I've heard of stories where they're doing mobile ADAS in Walmart parking lots. No, there's a thing called water runoff. And as a result, that parking lot is never in any place level. Otherwise, there will one day be flooding. And so that's a real thing. Having that clean, pristine setup so that you can, and that designated area to be able to do it. And so that's a significant investment, right?
Major.
You don't have to invest as much to flip a car or up to 3 in Florida or whatever it is in your states. But with ADAS, yeah, it's a significant investment. You guys want to jump in on that? Talk about that? Have you actually explored Tyson adding it? Or Bill, when did you start doing it? Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a very simple philosophy on ADAS. The problem plagues the industry. Then I'm just going to say collision because that's the most exposed, at least in my world. And what happened a lot over the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years, most shops would say, hey, we're just going to buy a setup and put it in the shop, or we invest it in another real estate that we can house ADAS. The problem with that is too often there's uneducated folks that try to set this up in order to fast track repairs, which I'm all about it. I'm a believer in, if you're going to do something like that, if you're going to enter into that world, and Brad, you nailed it. It's just liability. Me personally, I've always been a champion of, if there's a calibration that's required, I'm a dealer first guy. If there's something that needs to be done, I need to extend my liability if I ever repair that requires a certain calibration. If it's something that I can do, steering angle sensor calibration with a factory tool, absolutely. But when it comes to front radar or blind spot calibrations, oftentimes, and Tyson, you may agree, a lot of people that I see with my employees that travel the country or even in my shop, I'll catch one of my guys on a scan tool and just hit clear codes. Oh, there's nothing up, and then we'll just move it on its way. So I stay away from that kind of investment, and I just lean towards a dealer sublet or if there is a center that will do a certain calibration with proper liability coverage, I always opt for that because I'm a little more protected that way.
And I think that's the actual attitude that people need to have when it comes to ADOS is that, no, don't try to do it yourself unless you're going to go all the way and do
100%.
it, right? And then once you've gone all the way, now your customer base isn't necessarily the same customers that you have for your repair shop. Your customers are actually other repair shops, collision and body.
Yep.
It's a different marketing tactic. It's a different approach. It probably will require you, especially this early in the in this phase of things, like people are still waking up to these issues. It's probably going to require you to do old school selling where you actually go and shake hands with the local people and let them know this is an option. Here's why it matters.
Yep.
Because why it matters isn't actually a thing across the industry. Not everybody understands the liability issues that that are attached to it, or the complexities of it.
The other thing that, if I may add, Brad, the other thing that business, and I've had people that wanted to invest into ADAS business, where they don't understand is the amount of continuous investment that's required to do it right. So some people will purchase aftermarket tools and equipment. That doesn't really jive with what the manufacturers say sometimes. Yes, it may do the job and it may do a certain calibration, but unless it's a factory tool with factory software that's constantly being updated. New equipment, it becomes this gigantic investment that no one sees if you want to do it.
You mentioned aftermarket. My first thought that was going in my head was, how does that get updated, if it does, with the most recent software updates from the manufacturer? There better be that channel, because otherwise you just wasted your money on that. And what people don't realize is that there are, all right, so I'm in the digital marketing space, and I remember a trend that was happening pre-COVID that was just, I still can't wrap my mind around it. There were a handful of law firms in Philadelphia who were targeting certain industries, particularly restaurants, for not having their website compliant for the blind.
It's true.
Are you thinking about that? They're saying that their website was not ADA compliant for the blind. Now, the blind,
New York as well.
That doesn't necessarily, if you own and operate a small little restaurant, you pay someone for a website, you're not actually thinking, I got to make sure that I have the availability for a blind person to listen to my website to order food easily online. And that's not your first thing. Your first thing is whether or not you need to put this particular sauce on this particular sandwich, right? It's a whole different level. But the law firms were targeting, and they had, I think the article that I was reading about this was, they found 17 different restaurants that they were suing for not being ADA compliant. And so now I'm thinking, how many law firms are out there, personal injury type attorneys, who are like that category of attorneys, who are looking to whether or not the radar on the front bumper was calculated correctly so that it could avoid smashing into the guy that was in their blind side on the highway that now caused the death. And so it's not just a little, when I say liability, I'm not actually just talking about somebody's car got messed up. I'm talking about the potential that a law firm's going to come after you for bodily injury or worse. Yeah, that to me is where my mind goes, is that that's a real thing. But it's also an opportunity, again, for you to either invest in it and then sell to other shop owners the opportunity to make sure that their customers are also correctly cared for, but do it right. Again, we're talking about just taking inventory of what available space you have, right? If you've got that extra bay, then you could potentially set that up.
No, there's two aspects to it. I actually declined ADOS as well. We don't do body work, but ADOS is right in that like sweet spot where you get mechanical and collision, because there are mechanical components fail.
Right.
And we actually declined to invest in it. We use the Hunter alignment machine, which is the top of the line equipment. On top of that, so that ADOS machine from Hunter would be an additional $40,000. And so you have that $40,000 investment. You have to purchase a lift, a drive-on lift, additional to that, specific for that, right?
Okay.
So you can put it up in the air. It depends which sensors, right? There's a whole bunch of little, some of them go on the wheels, some go on the fenders, and there's a whole bunch, all of them are different. That's what makes it difficult. So that was what I was looking at too. And then on top of that, there's the money side. Okay, I can eventually look at it as eventually I'll get a return on investment.
Yeah.
Like an alignment. So good example. So my grandparents through the whole business this whole time never did tires and alignments until about 3-4 years ago when I bought all that equipment. The tire machine paid itself off in 7 months, right?
Okay.
Tire changer and balancer. The alignment machine will probably pay itself off in 4 to 5 years, right?
Okay.
The
Two
ADOS
more alternate streams of revenue potentially. If you have the space to add that alignment machine and that tire machine, then go at it. Yep. Keep going.
Yeah, no,
Sorry.
so it's one of those things. And then the ADOS, there's the initial $80,000 like hurdle to invest in it. But then on top of that, you have to have the space requirement, right? So there's a huge space requirement. And so if you're a shop owner and you're looking at it, you look at it as some of these ADOS calibrations take 2 hours. Some of these take 6 hours. Some of these are like, a lot of times you don't know whether it's going to be a 2-hour calibration or a 6-hour calibration until you get all the equipment on and then you start doing the calibration. And so now what you thought was going to take 2 hours is you're signed up for a 6-hour gig. And now you've lost that day for pretty much the whole day. You should just sign that day off. And so you have that initial 80,000 hurdle, and then you have the space that you lose some of that extra time too. I looked at the cost of it and declined doing the ADOS as well. But it's funny because we actually just purchased the like brand new Mercedes Zentry computer, right? And the factory Zentry computer is expensive, but we see so many every day. And so for us to be able to just program an engine computer, we've been using aftermarket providers that have pass-throughs, and that's fine. It works. But when you see so many and every module becomes particularly programmed to the vehicle, you realize that factory software is worth that $40,000. And so we did end up purchasing it, and night and day makes night and day difference. It's crazy when you use that factory's software, and it does do the job very effectively at first. So
yeah, it's interesting when you're looking at the industry overall. But again, we're talking about alternate revenue streams, and I'm also thinking about a typical marketing mantra for a lot of independent repair shops is your dealership alternative. So I'm thinking about this dealership alternative, and Bill was talking about how when it comes to ADOS, we go back to the dealer if we don't have the spot. Let's get it done by those who actually have that software in place. But again, this dealership alternative, what things are the dealerships doing that we're not doing? And I imagine not all dealers, but a lot of dealers, they'll do a quick vacuum on the inside of your car.
Yeah.
They'll do a quick cleanup of your cars. But if we're going to be the dealership alternative, all right, then maybe an additional service to offer and it's a concierge type service, but it could be a paid for service of just a quick micro detail or a macro detail. I'm sorry, just like a quick once over so that the car's a little bit cleaner than when you brought it in, inside and out. Who knows? But maybe just inside.
We actually offer 2 detail options. We offer a light detail and then a full detail, right? Some customers will ask about it, some won't. I've got a big sign right when they walk in the door. You know what I mean? It's one of those small things. I end up being the one to do it. If it's not me, it's one of my younger guys.
Okay.
Details
not with those hands though, right? Not with the current hands that you have. This is right. You got to first clean those up before you got to detail my car. Yeah. Now I'm curious, do you have it as here's one price, here's the light price, here's the full price? Or do you have it as if I'm doing another service with you, I'm getting my brakes done, I get a discount on the detail? Which way are you doing it?
Sometimes I'll give people a discount on the detail if they do it in addition to other work, right? If they show an interest in it. Like some people, the problem with details is I want to give a price right away, but I've got to see the car because there's some cars like you get in, there's 3 rows of seats, and I'm a perfectionist. So I'm going to flip up that 3rd row. I'm going to wipe it down. I'm going to close it back. You know what I mean?
But it's going to that's where they kept the dogs, plural.
Yeah. It's one of those things where, a big SUV, we tend to charge $225, $250, and I'll sometimes give that person a discount for a full one till $150, or even $175 if that's the case for the full detail, right? And that would include wash, wax, the whole 9 on the outside and the whole 9 on the inside.
But I'm thinking if I'm replacing my wheels, my tires, I'm doing a tire alignment, I'm replacing my brakes. I feel like the more money I spend with you, the more opportunity at just offering that at a discounted rate.
Oh yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah,
For sure.
But there's a potential a detailing service. It sounds like you're already doing that.
Yeah.
Is a great way to also upsell or add as an alternate revenue stream. Because if you do enough of those during a non-busy season, you could potentially focus on that from a marketing perspective.
Oh, there was 1 week we had, I think, 8 of them in 1 week, and
Okay.
that ended up being an extra $1,500. But shoot, that's I look at money as absolute, man. At the end of the day, everyone says it's relative, but at the end of the day, it still costs $6 for a dozen of eggs. You know what I mean?
Right.
100%.
Money's absolute. So that extra $1,500 is somebody I can pay next week. Small stuff like that.
Not to mention, if I can add, what details do is that now you capture a customer where as little as possible, that customer, let's face it, all they see is the shiny car. So next time something happens, they're going to immediately go to the service that you provided, as little as it may be.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm thinking about that. The world that we live in, think about just car sales in general. The average car buyer isn't looking under the hood or even understanding what's there. They're looking at the comfort features inside the cabin.
Yep.
True.
It's got nice seats.
And that's actually, yeah. And it's got a video game console in the middle. And so anyway, no, seriously though, that's a growing problem or a growing segment. And so how do we actually respond to that in the market? And this is one way where, okay, I got my inspection done, it costs X, but I also had my car detailed and I feel good because my cabin is more comfortable. What other things like that, Bill, that you might be doing already that we could play off, kind of increase, like everyone offers, or not everyone, but a lot of people offer shuttle rides and those types of things. But I feel like if you up the level of the shuttle, you could actually worthwhile charging a fee for that. Go ahead.
I have a philosophy overall that customers typically, at least my customers and in my experiences in the past, customers want convenience. Yeah. So I love how you said details, because that's huge for me. I literally minutes ago had a customer picking up their car. My CSR just stepped away. And the first question he asked, and he goes, "Hey, do you guys do PPF? Just wraps and clear wraps?" And absolutely. So does that pay as well as a large mechanical or a large collision repair? No, but what it does is it just captures the customer. It allows them to get into my door, at least get some revenue. But again, to me, data is king. So the more customers I can mine and capture, I don't care what even if I'm putting wiper blades on the car for them, it's big for me.
You said capture, and I like that, but I refer to it as stickiness of the customer.
Yes.
The more, and I'm not trying to tell every shop to do everything for every customer, but the more touches you have with that customer, the stickier they're going to be, more loyal they're going to be to you. And that's what we're talking about doing potentially, is increasing the revenue with alternate revenue streams, but also increasing that customer loyalty at the same time. So, window tinting could be something, and depending on your area, what's being asked for on a regular basis that you're regularly saying no to, and what is the cost for you to actually explore getting into that space, and then advertising it. Certain demographics, certain areas, like it's more common that they're asking for window tinting versus others, and play on that.
Or in New York, where we're actually a revenue stream. It's interesting you said tints. New York, there's a revenue stream to remove tints because they no longer, the state inspections are becoming more stringent. I probably get more revenue removing tints than I do with actually doing them.
That's funny. That is fun. That is really interesting.
Great.
Okay. All right. So, Bill, I'm not going to accuse you of this, but I'm already thinking that some people with less scruples have this idea where we're going to promote this business, then we're going to go to our local legislation and make sure that they make that illegal so that we can get business removing.
It's true,
first business. I'm sorry.
It's a good point though. So if you take that, at least in New York and other states that have more higher regulated tint repair, but it just amplifies how those segments have found other revenue streams. So when you talk about wraps, clear wraps, all of the old tint vendors, at least in New York, had to make a decision because they weren't driving nearly the amount of business. So what did they do? They all trained and they learned how to do clear wraps vinyl wraps all over again. So that's why you'll find, and this is all over the country that has regulated tints, that they all became wrap technicians, and they're making a lot of money doing it.
All right. So forgive me. So I'm not completely familiar with clear wrap. Is that specifically for windshields?
No. Okay, great. This is a fun topic because it's really hot in the market of just visuals. Let me give a little bit of history. The typical rewind 5, 10, 15 years, there's a scratch on the car, you paint it. Now what happens, if you look in the aftermarket industry, especially the exotic cars or the show cars, what people started doing is making graphic wraps, changing colors, matte colors, and wrapping them. But now there's also a thing, like I said, PPF, which a customer literally just asked me, where it's a clear film that covers you typically front and rear bumpers and edges of hoods from rock and stone chips. But it's natural progression as a tint technician to move over saying, hey, I'm not getting any of this business, but I know how to apply film. So I'm just going to switch and learn how to do clear film on an adhesive on a front bumper and doing that. And they're probably tripling and quadrupling their business doing that because it's the hot thing to do. And it's a lot cheaper than painting the car.
The goal is to avoid needing to paint the car.
Correct. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. You're not covering up blemishes at that point. You're actually, right. Okay.
Correct.
Preventing them from happening in the first place. Okay. Interesting. There's services available to, is it profitable to remove rust versus just replace?
Thank you. You agree with me. So I had a customer yesterday, and this summarizes everything. Customer says to me, I have an old Wrangler. And they says, hey, I got some rust. That is the red flag of red flag that I hear. And I say, my word I always use is, okay, so where do you want me to cut and where do you want me to install? And they don't know what I'm talking about. And I say, we act strictly on what the manufacturer says. Rust is a cancer. If there's rust somewhere, it's probably worse than you see. And pardon my New York attitude, but I'll tell a customer, I'm like, great. So when you come back in 6 months to a year wanting your money back, where do you want me to write the check? And they don't understand. And the reason why that is because rust will always return. And the days of cutting rust out and maybe fabricating a new piece, those days are over, at least in the eyes of the manufacturer. So when I tell a customer, I can't do that because the manufacturer tells me I can't, not only, they're probably upset for a couple of minutes, and then they say to me, at least you're honest. And I always say, well, I'd love to take your money, but if I don't have to, at least you were forewarned.
So what's the solution? You got rust on the car, you're just replacing all the parts.
Replace. That's
100%
always
I'll give a couple of good examples. Here in Florida, we don't see as much rust, but I can put a car up in the air and know if it's been in New York or up north the moment it goes up in the air.
Or whether or not it's been garage kept, right?
Even if it's garage kept.
Yep.
That's what's wild. So I have one customer, wonderful customer. She's from Buffalo, New York. One of the first jobs we had to do for her, nonetheless, 4-wheel drive Mercedes, which you could pull in the whole thing down to do brake lines, right? She had rusted brake lines. And so it's small stuff like that. I can't just cut out part of the brake line. The whole thing is already rusted. You know what I mean? And then another good example is I had a guy that he just came in for a regular oil change and we put it up in the air and you could see the rear subframe on his 12-year-old car. A 12-year-old car, had complete. I don't know how this dude, he didn't mention, he's like, yeah, there's a little knocking noise in the back. And we put it up. We're like, dude, this is your knock. And we were like, we don't get into that deepest stuff. But I was like, I gave him the body shop that we work with and he ended up getting it done. He got a couple of estimates. One guy offered to cut it out and he called me about it. And I told him, I was like, dude, no, replace the whole thing. It's like, don't even skirt it. Just replace the whole thing. And I know it's going to cost you twice as much, but it'll get you twice as long.
100%. And let me add to that. Brad, you mentioned before liability. There is no liability like diverting from what the manufacturer tells you have to do. And there is no manufacturer that has an extraction of rust where you're cutting out and fabricating. That just does not exist anymore. So when a customer comes in with rust, to echo what Tyson said, it doesn't happen. And I tell them replace. And unfortunately,
Interesting.
they don't go for it. But I look at it like this. If a customer walks in my door and leaves without a service, at least they know that I gave them the truth that's going to protect.
Yeah. Good.
Now, that's the thing. That customer comes back to me all the time now. You know,
Yep.
he got his rear subframe done. He still brings his car to me. He got a couple $1,000 worth of work a few months back. So it's one of those things where if sometimes saying no is one of the best things you can do in this industry.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Well,
Like, we want to take on new revenue streams, but at the same time, sometimes saying no it's the hardest thing, but it's the best thing you can do.
100%.
what about second opinions as it's a small potential revenue stream, but maybe if you market it as such. What I'm talking about is the new cars are priced at a point where the used cars are still there. Now, the used car prices are still inflated, but there people are buying them when they need to, right? Of course, it echoes back to why they're repairing cars in the first place. And then it goes back to what Bill said about they're trying to just keep it on the road for now.
Right.
But even still, let's talk about the purchase of a used car. Forgive me,
Fantastic
but I'm not trusting the guy who's selling me the car lot. I'm not doing it. Like, half the time, the actual sales rep is intentionally walled off from the mechanic that looked at the car in the first place, so that they can have plausible deniability on things. Like, so I recently looked at a car and it had rust underneath of it, and oh, it does? Like, okay, that's fine, but is there money to be made in advertising? If you're buying a car, bring it here for X dollars, we'll give a second opinion. And because you're paying for it, you know that it's a legit second opinion. Because I'm not attached to the seller or you, it's a legit second opinion. Is there money to be made there? Go ahead.
Great point. I do these all the time. And I'll tell you from a legal perspective. And so one of the things that I do through my other business is not only we do appraisals, but we'll often do the second opinion and just look at it. The problem with that is it's an interesting conversation, and I learned the hard way, is the second that, and it's not like the old days where, hey, I'm going to give it to my mechanic, he's going to test drive it. With how litigious we are as a society and the advent of Carfax, you have to be very careful. So when you're doing something like that, and I've done it, where you'll say, it's got a leak here, but the second you say the car's not bad, or other than that, the car's good, the buyer depends on your word. And let's say something goes wrong that's outside of that. And in the mechanical world, we know that you could clear a check engine light, and then 2 days later, it's back again with a different problem.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be very careful. But there is an opportunity there. And it's just about standardizing it and giving the right disclaimers, saying, this is what I observe, this is what I see, this is what my test provides. We are not responsible or if anything else were to arise. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people have that issue where they look at it and they notice that, oh, well, it looks good, a little bit of rust underneath. Now, if that same car goes down the road and after they buy it and crashes, unfortunately, because of an ABS malfunction, then all of a sudden, the person looking at it becomes liable for the second opinion.
So here's what I just heard you say. All right. I heard you say this is a good opportunity if you have a standardized process.
Correct.
But there is no end to that standardized process that gives a one sentence summary. Like,
no,
sure,
absolutely
buy it,
not.
or sure, okay, I think it's fine, I would buy it, or whatever that. No, it's here is what you're getting into. Here are the potential repairs. Right. And you're allowed to have repairs. Your cars will have repairs. That's as long as you go in with your eyes open, that's fine. And so you do a video or a image-based DVI, and just give them the good, the bad, the coming, the worst.
Yeah, the easy disclaimer on those, sorry to interrupt, the easy disclaimer on those that I do is I usually balance it within the market. So let's say, and it's funny, I've done content on this, where you'll say, hey, there's a Rolls-Royce Cullinan for an eighth of the price on Facebook Marketplace. You have to think twice. What I'll often say is, considering what these cars are selling for, you may want to look deeper, or I might say, I'd stay away from that. There's a reason why this price is so low. But even if I'm doing my report, and it's typically a 20 to 25 page report, where I'll say, I see X, Y, Z. I can't anticipate if there's anything else, but the most important thing is having the disclaimer saying, this is what I physically observe. If there's any internal items that I did not observe that may arise. We are not responsible for our opinion, which will cover you in a deposition and in a legal proceeding.
Interesting. So I've heard of shops that offer this as a service to their consistent customers or as a way to get customers in the door.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so we call them pre-owner inspections, POIs. We charge 150 even. It's one of the few things I'm probably never going to change my price on. But it's one of those where I would say, 3/4 to 80% of them have been like okay vehicles. I always tell people in the frame of mind, would I put me or my family in the vehicle? That's the best way to explain it to somebody. If I'm
maybe I want to push back on that real quick. I'm sorry. You could put yourself in the vehicle because you can repair it if it needs to. I can't. So put yourself in the vehicle with my knowledge
I
base
wouldn't take my
and pretend
family,
that I've got 5 left fingers.
I wouldn't take my
hands
family in a car that I didn't trust. You know what I mean? Like maybe me. Yeah, me, but I wouldn't ever put my girlfriend, my pregnant girlfriend in a car I didn't trust. You know what I mean?
So true.
And my grandmother being one of the owners of the business, that's another one of my scales, right? Okay, when I put my grandmother in this car.
Fair enough. And I got to tell you, I can appreciate what you just said and I just saw this on a sitcom that I was watching with my family just the other night. And I looked at my 9-year-old son and I said, yeah, that's true. The slowest and most crazy, cautious drive. I might have reached 8 miles an hour the first time I drove my son home from the hospital, right? That drive from the hospital after he's been born to back home, right? You're like, okay, is it safe? The heightened awareness and is my car good enough? And interestingly enough, I actually pre-family, I would drive a Jeep until it failed and I didn't care. I had sneakers in the back. I could just put them on and go for a 10-mile walk home. No big deal. But now actually it happened. I actually heard metal falling out of my Jeep while I was on a highway. And then I couldn't shift my car and my 1-year-old son was in the back seat. And so now I've elevated my car buying game. So, cause I had to learn almost the hard way with that, but it was an interesting experience. So so that's a good example. So your answer is, so you would actually tell them, would you put your grandmother or
but that's, I think, a good litmus test, at least.
Now, but does that override? I'm sorry. Does that, Bill, you just said, don't tell them whether it's good or bad. You said, here's what I observed. Is Tyson actually overstepping?
No, it's perfect. And if I failed to mention that I would often say in the phone, hey, here's my report. Do I think it's a good purchase? And I use the same language. Say, would I put my wife and my kids in this car for this value? Yes, I do feel that way. But I protect myself by giving a report with disclaimers in.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. And so we have a full check sheet. We play with a whole bunch of stuff, and it's got good, fair, poor. Everything gets marked good, fair, or poor. And really the only things that I give customers the sheet if they want it, and I'll show it to them. And really the only things that I tell them, hey, this is what's concerned is anything gets marked up as poor. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because they're obviously buying a used car. There's fairness. There's some good advantages, I think, to getting a pre-owner inspection in this example. And let me give you one example where I had to tell the customer to not buy the car. It was actually a very interesting situation. And it's actually you can go onto Google. It's one of the few 1-star reviews we have, because I responded to the guy that actually, once you get to this story, you're gonna understand. Basically, the customer, this girl had owned a Mercedes and she was interested in buying a newer one. This gentleman agreed to meet her at my shop at 3:30 on a Friday for a pre-owner inspection. Okay. Both the current car's owner and the prospectus owner are in my lobby. Okay. So I get, yes, you have both of these individuals in the lobby. I pull the car around and right away I see that it's a dealer. Okay. So that it's got a dealer tag. So one thing that's very critical, and this is one of the big things about getting a good qualified, smart people, competent people that will check this stuff, is if you're actually selling the car under a dealership, you have to notify the customer. The customer has to. If you look on the Florida State Motor Vehicle License and the repair licenses, it says it must be placed in a conspicuous place, right? So the customer has to be they have to know about it. Does that make sense? Like, it's got to be obvious, conspicuous. Does that make sense? And so right away, I pulled the car around and I see that it's a Florida dealer tag. And I'm like, this is a dealer that's selling the car under a personal name. You know what I mean? So already my red flags are starting to shoot up. And
Sensors going off. Right.
yeah, the car's going, there's a whole bunch of red flags going on. And so it's one of the only times that I will admit I had to report another dealer to the state of Florida because they did not disclose this to her. And on top of that, during this pre-owner inspection, we have a very consistent process. We always scan the vehicle, and then put the vehicle, give a full printout. We put the vehicle up in the air. We check everything, put it back down. It usually takes an hour, 15 minutes at the most. The gentleman who owned the car was already half an hour late. Now we've pushed the time to 4 o'clock, right? And then he said that he needed to leave by 4:30, right? And so, yeah, so some bunch of red flags going on.
Listen, I need you to replace my engine, but I need to pick it up at 2.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So these were, and then I put the car up in the air, and yeah, it was okay, but it needed work. I thought that, and she asked me, do you think this is a fair price? And I'm like, honestly, I just sold one of these cars not too long ago, and it didn't have these problems, and I sold it for $1,000 less. So my honest opinion would be, I don't think for the price it's the best value. You know what I mean?
And so, a used car, if you know the problems that you're going to have and you need to repair right away, it's just the cost of ownership. Go into it with your eyes open. I get it. Keep going.
No, that was one of those moments where I do believe that the pre-owner inspection actually saved that girl from a situation where she may have gotten into a car and it didn't need like terrible stuff, but it had some wear. It had some wear and tear, and some of the information that I dug up, because we have access to other information as the dealers. Right when I ran that tag, I found right away that it was registered to another dealership. So technically it's in their inventory.
Yeah.
You have to disclose that, and that has to be disclosed immediately. You can't just sell it as a personal car on Facebook Market.
Right.
And so that was a good moment where I do think that the pre-owner inspection, there's also times where...
But you mentioned a 1-star on Google. Is that the same story? Was it the other dealer that gave you the 1-star?
Yeah. So he told me that he needed to be somewhere across town by 5 o'clock, which is why he had to leave by 4:30. Mind you, he was already half an hour late to the appointment to begin with.
This is the seller, not the buyer.
Yeah, the seller. The buyer was
paying
there
you for the inspection.
Yeah, he was half an hour late for the inspection.
No, but I'm sorry. Who was paying you for the POI?
The prospectus customer.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, keep going.
Prospectus buyer. So yes, that's usually how, and she paid us and she was happy. I do think that it saved her some money. I'm sure she went and I didn't see her again, but I'm sure she went and bought another car that's a non-Mercedes.
And she's not your customer now going forward, though, is
Yeah, because we only work on Mercedes and Spurs. Yeah.
Okay. So you think that she bought a different brand, a different model, or a different manufacturer?
I believe she bought a different manufacturer. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and
I'm just thinking that through. I'm I'm wondering how that looks or how that feels. I've brought 2 cars to this guy. He told me not to buy either of them. He also sells cars. I'm wondering if it feels like there's an alter. I'm not suggesting that there is. I'm not suggesting that you're doing this, but I'm suggesting I'm thinking from the customer's perspective. Are they wondering? Because we already stated that this type of inspection, pre-ownership of the car, pre-owner inspection,
I think at the time I didn't have any cars.
It's a potential way to get more customers and to keep stickier customers.
I think at the time I didn't have any cars that she was interested in. So it's one of those things where it's time and place. Like at the end of the day, my grandfather told me this, and this is something I absolutely believe. We sell our trust at the end of the day. Yeah. If I'm going to treat each job independently, and we're going to sell our trust on each job independently. Right. And so if she came to me asking to buy a car, then I would go through that process with her. But if she came to me with interested in other cars as a POI, as she did, I'm gonna treat it independently and not steer her that direction. We're in the business of staying in business, not in the business of getting out quickly.
Let's talk marketing real quick. We talked about these extra revenue streams, right? So flipping cars. We talked about the POIs. We've talked about tinting windows, untinting windows. We've talked about detailing. How many of these services that you provide are on your website as a separate page promoting that particular service?
Only, I only have our two core businesses, which is going to be the mechanical side, your basic servicing, all the way up to more complex mechanical, and then the selling side. I have a couple of cars that we have in inventory there.
So from an SEO standpoint, from a search engine optimization, from a Google perspective, you want to have a very focused, hyper-focused topic for your website. And that's important. And that goes true also with your Google business profile. You don't want to list every single possible thing that you've ever thought about doing on your Google profile, right? You want to have the topics covered, the main pieces. But the flip side of that is we're offering these alternative revenue streams, but we're not telling anybody.
Yeah.
So are we really offering these alternative revenue streams? Because you're weighing out whether or not you have it as a focus, as a page on your website that might detract from your primary topic of repair or collision work or body work, or whereas, so there's the question. Are you just using social media to get the word out, or are you not getting the word out at all? You're just mentioning it, as you said, Tyson, a sign on the desk as they walk in. Are you leaving money on the table by not telling other people? All right, you guys go ahead, share your thoughts on that.
Yeah, potentially. My goal isn't to attract every client to those additional services. My goal is to attract my best client. You know what I mean? It's one of those where I don't want to do details to everybody. I want to do details to the customer that's already been that's taking care of me. That's the person I'm going to go out of my way to detail. You
For sure.
If I have two customers, one's been a 10-year customer, brand new customer, and both are asking for a detail. Unfortunately, I'd take the 10-year customer. I'd just tell them, look, I've been this person taking care of me a very long time. I'm going to take care of them. Not in the new customer. Not that I don't want to get that extra service to them. We're very big on taking care of those who take care of you. And I don't.
So what percentage of your customers, I'm going to push back real quick. What percentage of your customers know about all of your additional services?
Probably half to 60%. The other half, I would say of the other half, only about half of them is capturable. What I mean by that is some of them is just beyond budget. They bring it to me I don't even see them for oil changes. I see them when their Mercedes is flooded and they need specialized electrical work. You know what I mean? And
can you please dry out my car?
Yeah. So it's like, I don't always see some people in some circumstances. Some customers, I see the whole gauntlet, right? So I would say those ones, they tend to have more knowledge, but the ones that I only see for particular jobs, they don't. But one thing, I haven't gone into this yet. It's something I'm brainstorming, but I would add a separate page to the website for this. Because we only work on Mercedes and Sprinters, I have thought about buying 2 Sprinter vans, and one of them converting it to more of a nice chauffeur type vehicle. You know what I mean? That you can rent out for a prom night or a birthday party with friends. You know what I'm saying? But then a second van to have as like a utility work van that people can rent out from us. Part of that is with U-Haul. What I noticed when I rented from U-Haul, there's a lot of restrictions, and I get some of them. But that's where some of the flexibility with the small businesses, you can have a little bit more flexibility in some of those things. Those are some things that I'm like considering.
Well, there's another
I would actually
stream.
add another page to my website for.
Yeah, but there's another alternate revenue stream, right? Is the rental side of things, or a higher level shuttle service potentially. What do you do currently for customers who want to drop off their car?
Most of the time, they get picked up. We don't really have a shuttle service, a paid shuttle service. Some customers we work with, but unfortunately, a lot of times we don't really have a pickup and drop off service. It's just logistically difficult. Bill touched on it too, and I know you and I talked about this the first time, but there's like a 70,000 auto tech shortage across the country. 70,000 people short of auto techs, of where we were just 10, 15 years ago and where we need to be now. And so it's one of those where my guys are strapped from 7:30 in the morning to 5. And so it's very hard for all of us. Yeah.
But you could potentially, you said you have 2 extra vehicles, you could potentially actually start a fleet and actually have a rental option
Yeah, so
where-
that was what I was
so-
saying is I'm considering adding. That's actually something strategic that I'm thinking about adding more.
Yeah, but your rentals were very specific, right? Prom night
Right.
and utility type vehicle, or work vehicle. You could potentially have a sedan specifically or an SUV specifically for the purposes of I'm dropping off my car for 2 days. You're going to get I don't know how long it's going to take for you to fix it, but I've got a car and I'll pay a small fee. And we actually talked about this at length on the December podcast.
Yeah, so there's insurance liability risks with that. That's the only downside.
100%.
I did consider that. It's actually the cost to doing that from a liability insurance is actually very burdensome. Like they actually almost double your basic liability insurance on a yearly basis. Because I told them, hey, is there any way we can
Hold on. So I want you to go and call your insurance rep back, or maybe call a different insurance rep and tell them you're starting a brand new business and have it as a separate business that's
separate
operating
entity?
a separate entity. Yes, it's a rental car company. 100%. It's not under Star Import. It's Star Rentals. And see whether or not, I don't know the answer to that. See whether or not that actually makes it a little bit more doable. And then treat it like a separate DBA. Like you're not trying to evade, like it's a different separate business that needs to stand on its own 2 feet at that point. And Star Import is actually contracting with Star Rental to
provide storage for the vans and provide maintenance services.
Right.
Yeah.
The customer comes in, I need to drop off my car for 3 days. Do you have a rental? No, we don't, but Star Rental does. And here's their number. Hello? It's the same person.
Yeah.
Hold on, I'm getting another call.
Right.
Oh, it's you. Hi, how are you? Good to hear from you. No, but in all seriousness, so I think that actually might be something that would be, worth looking into as a separate. There are times when it makes more sense to have a separate entity, because then you can actually also have a separate website that doesn't detract from you mention it as your concierge features for auto repair. You have a relationship with Star Rental. Here's the link. Boom, separate website.
Yeah, exactly.
And you could actually do that for the other things as well, because for our customers, here are some extra comfort features that we offer.
Yeah.
And you could potentially spin up, you're not necessarily trying to get SEO on those other websites. So it would be pretty inexpensive to create separate websites for those additional entities.
Right.
Now, I want to talk a little bit more about the POI thing real quick. I want to circle back to that for a moment, because here's what I did recently, and I had a really interesting experience with it.
Okay.
I didn't get a POI on the car that I was looking at.
Okay.
I took pictures of the engine. I took pictures and videos of the underside of the vehicle. I got my phone in places that I didn't even know I could get my phone in places to take pictures. And I uploaded that to Grok, which is X.com's AI.
Yep. I love Grok.
And Grok said, don't buy this car. Initially, I said, Grok, here's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at this car with this number of miles and this model. What do you think? And it said, yeah, it looks good. And then I uploaded pictures that here's an update to that. And it said, run away. And it was really interesting to do that, because I did get an offer from a local shop to actually just bring it in. They look at their cars for free. And as we pointed out, that could be a risk in of itself, even though they're trying to get more customers.
Yeah, no, I definitely think AI, it adds a lot of elements to it, right? You can Google and look up a lot of things that are...
Yeah. It's not going to be able to tell me whether or not the motor mounts are good, but it saw the rust on the underside of the car.
Yeah.
And that's why it said to run away, right?
Yeah.
And there are certain things that it's not going to be able to do. It's 100%. It's not connected to that car's computer to read the codes.
It's interesting that it could understand the pictures. You know what I'm thinking about that right
It's a little scary, because I'm a little concerned about Terminator. I hear Elon Musk regularly watches that show, so I maybe it's okay. He's aware of the nonsense that's coming, but I don't know. Nonetheless, yeah, it was interesting. It was able to look. It also suggested that there was too much salt on the inside of the underneath the hood. That it could actually see the type of dirt, the white dirt.
That's another thing. I can tell Northern Car right away. That white salt.
Right
away.
Well, my first, and I actually I pushed back from the dealer. I was like, where was this car previously owned? Was it in Jersey? Because I'm in Pennsylvania. Was it in Jersey, where they could potentially be closer to that shoreline? But no, it was actually closer to the Chesapeake. So in Maryland. So, but
I still see a lot of rust cars from that region, that mid-Atlantic north. I would say like Virginia, Maryland. I see some cars from that area, and it's like everything from that area north is just rust.
even if it's garage kept.
Yeah.
And you said yes earlier.
Yeah.
And so,
very,
all right. So I have a car now that doesn't have rust. All right. It's garage kept. Like, is there something? I'm up north above the Mason-Dixie line, like you're saying. So should I get out a hairdryer every morning? Or every time I get back to the house, I get out a hairdryer and I dry off the under. Like, what are we talking about?
That's
How do I
not what it is,
that?
because we deal with water here in Florida, so it's not the water. The water isn't the problem. It's the salts. The salts eat the polymers and the oils that are on the outside of the metals, and then it just allows water to get into it. So clearly, whatever vehicle you have. So my mom actually paid. She lives in Massachusetts, and she paid for an undercoating on her Ford Explorer. It was pretty expensive, but it's held up pretty well. I actually put it up in the air and was very impressed by how well it was singing. But granted, it's only 6 years old. We'll give it another 5 more years and we'll see what's going on.
I'm curious about that, because there sounds like an alternate revenue stream that we could be adding, is offering undercoating.
For up north, I don't get any benefit from that, but up north, that's a great thing to do.
Absolutely. So another example is up north is there's more conversation about snow tires versus all season versus summer tires. And depending on whether or not you're in an area like Buffalo, New York versus the area that I'm in, which doesn't get enough snow, in my opinion, I'm trying to convince my family that we should move a few hours north to get more snow. But getting some pushback on that right now. Anyway, there's back to the tires piece of it. There's an opportunity there. So I think it coincides. But you have to look at your area. What around me is available to me? What do I have as an asset that I can be adding to or from the conversation?
No, it's crazy. I drive up to Massachusetts and I'm like, man, my tires get killed. I appreciate the roads in Florida and Georgia when I go up there up north, because I hit like North Maryland as you're starting to get North Maryland towards Delaware. Up into Connecticut and stuff, and New York, and man, there's so many potholes. They're unavoidable. Even New Jersey, the whole nine there. It's just the roads are so miserable sometimes.
I agree, and that's why I have an SUV. Like, that's just like a minimum requirement, right? But no,
man,
but
I hit through those potholes. I'm like, man, if I had a tire shop, I'd be making money left and right up here with the tires and wheels getting bent.
Right. So this is not a recommendation, but I'm picturing a tire shop, right? And then every night they go out and they mess up the road for the mile before them in either direction. But no, don't do that. And you don't need to do that in Jersey and Pennsylvania and Maryland and Delaware, because we joke and make comments about PennDOT and here in Pennsylvania. And I don't know, maybe it's worthwhile. I don't know the details, but I do know that when you're talking about, and guys, if people are listening to this podcast and they can give me more of an education on this subject, but it seems to me that when you have drastic weather changes, you're going to have a more difficult time maintaining the roads, right? So the water springs underneath it are constantly changing, but also today it's going to be 70 degrees, and tomorrow morning it might be 20 degrees or 25 degrees. So that's actually not on the forecast, but that happens all the time, especially in the spring and the fall, where it's such extremes in the same 24 hours, and the pavement just can't keep up with the changes.
I'm actually surprised that they haven't developed more of a nylon type road material. And the reason why I say that is because nylon is what they're putting on a lot of these turbo cooling lines and turbo heating lines and stuff. And it's very, I don't want to say durable. It does break over time, but it seems like when plastic is welded and melted and smeltered to like the right consistency, it can actually produce as hard of a material as like a metal or a very hard rock even. And so I'm surprised that they haven't developed like different road styles.
Or have they, and it's too costly to put into place. I don't know the answer to that.
But no, I would even be surprised. Like you've got to think there's somebody with enough money somewhere that says, I don't want to just repave this asphalt every X amount of years. There's got to be a way. You know what I mean? I'm just trying to think And even with a nylon, if you had those squares, they'd be way more replaceable. They already make the squares with cement. Unless if you're using asphalt, they're usually long, straight slabs, which are good. But if you're using the cement, like the more cement materials, there's always those gaps. You know what I mean? And you hear them when you're driving over. Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah, it's annoying.
It's like, why couldn't we just make this all like a nylon plastic? And anytime there's a chunk, you just go replace the whole like square. You know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe.
Instead of having to like repave, because wherever they repave it, it ends up getting worse. And then it's just,
they're not fixing the underlying problem potentially, right? Again, there might be a new spring, underground spring in that area that's actually pulling in, and all they're doing is topping more off. In the last 5 years, the number of conspiracy or at least distrust towards our government institutions has increased, especially since COVID, right? We're talking about this, and my mind right now is going to somewhere, somehow, someone is actually making sure that the organizations that maintain the roads don't install the nylon, because they're the ones getting paid to fix it. Yeah. They want it to be broken every so often because that's their entire revenue stream, and it's holding us back. They actually add and I don't know any of that to be the actual case. But my mind goes there, especially with I wonder if, and my mind goes there because of the increased distrust that we have in our institutions right now. And I don't know, hopefully that'll switch, or maybe that's how it's supposed to be. Maybe we're supposed to be suspicious so that we make sure that we hold them to account. Maybe that's the actual answer.
I don't know. All I know is in my short lifetime, and I've only been around 28 years, I'm turning 29 in a month, but in my short lifetime, it's a giant coin. It just keeps going in a giant circle.
Sure.
And in my own last 20 years, the circles have just gone like this. We're just going around the circle together. So I think maybe it's where we're just at a point where we're at an inflection point, and maybe it'll go up, maybe it
probably will, but
get worse.
I don't know.
It can't get any worse, that's for sure.
So maybe after I write the book, Get Bored, I'll write the book, Stay Suspicious, and it'll be the time of when we're starting to grow our trust, and we shouldn't, because that's how we hold them to account.
With your POIs, right?
That's all of it. Yeah, but definitely. All right, good. There's one thing that we didn't touch on that I can think of, but I'm going to float it back to you real quick. Is there anything that we missed? But especially right now in our economy, adding turbo and performance enhancing type kits aren't probably as prevalent as in a good economy. But that's potentially something that could be done. Do you have any experience with that, or any thoughts on, or maybe you don't want to talk about it because the bureaucracy that's regulating, making sure that you're not putting the wrong NAS to cars.
Yeah, no, we don't modify cars.
Okay.
We don't modify cars, but Uncle Sam's not listening. There's a couple of diesels out there that have been modified.
Right.
Other than that,
you've heard stories. I get it. I understand. Yes,
but no, we tend not try to modify, even if like it's something customer wants to do, because there's always something else. And so for us, we found you either keep it OE or keep it to the manufacturers of the OE. And because I don't like modifying it. The moment you modify, you start getting into territory that I don't like having to. It ends up being it's not just this turbo getting installed. It's you got to make this other bracket to make sure.
Right, it's a whole different thing.
This aftermarket turbo you want to go in. So, I try to keep it to OE or manufacturers. Yeah, manufacturers that build it for Mercedes. So
and restoration is a whole nother thing that you could potentially get into. But again, that's another big type of investment, because you're targeting a different type of customer, and you're going to be tying up bays for a month or two.
I've had one for a year and a half so far.
So it goes back to analyzing your space. Am I doing window tinting? Am I doing mobile, or am I doing ADAS, or am I doing details or mini details, or am I doing POIs? Am I blowing up the road 1 mile on either side so I can sell them new tires, or who knows what, right? So
a lot of money.
No, seriously,
a lot of money in tires.
Yeah, a lot of money. There can be, but I don't. How is the markup good? I don't even know. For personally, it's good. So sell a tire, you make a lot of money. Okay. All right.
It depends how
I've heard tire dealers talk about how their margins continue to wane.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it was just that much more profitable back in the day. I don't know.
Yeah, I would say it's tire and type. Some of these new ones with like
True.
run flats, really low profile run flats, you can lose your
Mhm.
ass really quick if you don't do it right.
Right.
They can be, it's one of those things I try to price it against the dealer. You know what I mean? So I tend to be up
Yep.
a little bit higher than tire shops, which I tell people that I don't mind doing that. You know what I mean? But I know that your valve's going to get changed every time. But simple
Yep.
stuff like that, like Sam's Club, they'll reuse your little tire valve. And reason why is because that, I don't know why, but I see this all the time. It gets corrosion in it, and then the tire's leaking out because they just didn't change the valve. And it's simple stuff like that that we take care of. Even the little rubber ducky on the old tires. Some places charge that. I know. I change it every time I take off an old tire with one of those little rubber valves. To me, it's part of changing the tire. You know what I mean? And that's part of me guaranteeing that the customer's tire is going to be okay.
Yeah. And it's interesting because, again, I think it's a small thing, but I also think that it's something that I'm hoping that every one of your customers that you've done that for knows that you've done that and why it matters, so that they appreciate your service more. Not just they got a new set of tires on it, right? It's beyond than just, for them to actually have that understanding of what you're doing for them and how you're treating them. All right, so we've talked at length for a while. I can't think of off the top of my head different things that we've missed, but surely we missed other opportunities. And as many of you know, and some of you don't know, there is a Facebook group for the Garage Grit podcast. And the hope is it's a growing group. It's a newer group, but the hope is that there'll be additional questions that'll be asked. We didn't talk about this alternate revenue stream or that alternate, or this was said about this alternate revenue stream, and this is why I have reservations about it. I'm okay with you pushing back. We're here to share ideas and here to help each other out as a community. Bill, you talked about the training aspect of things earlier today, and earlier this month, I was talking to somebody who has, and I'm excited to actually have him on in the future. But we were talking about how he's bringing kids off the street into his training program and keeping them off the street because now they've got a skill.
Yep.
And that's exciting. That's a side mission that his shop has actually created for the opportunity for him to do. And it is awesome. Absolutely. Because we were talking about the deficit in mechanics, and he's doing his little piece to try to chip away at it.
Yeah, I've got one apprentice right now who I offered to pay to go to tech school for, and obviously he's going to have to agree to stay with me for a length of time afterwards. But it's one of those where when you can teach somebody with a good work ethic, you can't sometimes. It boils down to work ethic and attitude. That's what I would say. If your attitude and your effort are there, the rest of it you can teach, honestly.
That's so true.
Yeah.
I think if you can show up to work on time and give an effort, if you have those basic traits, then everything else is teachable. Like apprenticeships is the biggest thing right now with people.
Yeah.
You can bring someone on, even if it's holding a ratchet, and the amount of knowledge one can get by maybe a 20, 30-year tech is immeasurable.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I'm a big believer that if you're coachable, then you've got the world in front of you,
100%.
regardless of. I made an overstatement recently that even if you have two left thumbs, you could potentially, if you worked hard enough, maybe you could get yourself into the professional level of baseball. You have to work harder than Pete Rose to be able to make that happen. And Tyson, I'm glad you're smiling because Pete Rose, you might not even know the name.
I know Pete Rose. Come on,
all right.
I know baseball. I'm not that young.
All right. Yeah. So, but if you have that kind of the Charlie hustle 10X and you're coachable, then you can overcome whatever challenge you can have. Now, of course, there's some limitations. If you're 4'11", you're probably not going to be a forward in the NBA. But there are things that you can do to overcome.
Don't tell Nate Robinson that.
Who's I'm sorry.
Don't tell Nate Robinson that he was that short little guard for the Knicks.
Ouch. Whoa, take it easy on my Knicks.
What's his height?
I think he was like 5'6" or something. He was short.
He's like 5'6", 5'7". Yeah, he's pretty short.
He was short, and he was baller, man. Like he was roast. He would roast some people.
Nice. Okay, so there's the point. He had to work harder than somebody who had just had a natural inclination and was 7 foot tall. But he was able to pull it off. That's a great point. And that's how my attitude is. That there's you got to be aware of what you've got, and okay, I can't deal with this, but I can do this over here. And that actually applies to the alternate revenue streams. Again, assess what space you have, assess what your skills are, assess who your customers are, where you're at, and then figure out how to augment your revenue from there. And I want to hear from you guys as well as the people who are listening in on that Facebook group. If you're not already in the Facebook group, jump out to the Garage Grit Podcast Facebook group and request to be in the private group. If you're in the space, I'll let you in, and then I'm going to encourage you to have that conversation. And as you guys already know, this podcast is brought to you by aashopmarketing.com, a digital marketing company for repair shops. And I'm grateful that they're footing the bill for all of this so that we can have these conversations to grow our community and help things out. As we're wrapping up, is there any last words on either the podcast or what you're doing or alternate revenue streams? Bill, why don't you go first?
Yeah, I think just to summarize everything, I was excited to hear about this topic because one of the biggest things that I love to do is just social media. So you mentioned it before, and just mentioning it to your customers, a very easy way to do it is introduce it on your social media saying, we do this, and see how it performs. And if it performs in a way where you're getting feedback from your customers and your audience, then that's something you can broaden and extend to future customers and your existing customers. Yeah, real big fan.
That's a great point. And there's a couple pre-points to that. If you have 200 followers on your Facebook page, yeah, you don't have an audience on Facebook.
Yep.
You don't. And because the way Facebook works, if none of them have actually engaged with your page recently, again, you don't have an audience.
Yep.
And so before you actually try to do a test on whether or not you should do a new service, you need to make sure that you have an audience, which means you have to have been providing relevant content to them, not relevant to you. There might be an overlap, by the way, that's good, but you need to be providing content that's actually going to be of interest to them, and then they're going to engage. I regularly say that if I put the words up there, I'm eating bacon with my son, even when he was like 3 years old, if I go eating bacon with my son, it'll get so many likes. But if I took a picture of he and I eating bacon, then it's going to get even more likes. But if I took a video of us eating bacon together, right? Because people love babies, bacon, pets, right? It's, whether or not you've changed the brakes correctly is not all that interesting, but it's still good content to have as part of your content mix on social media. And we talked about whether or not to have pages about particular content services that we offer on our website and how that can take away from your SEO, because your SEO needs to be very focused on your primary topic. As Bill just said, focusing that on social media after you have the audience is a great way to introduce that service to your existing customers.
Correct.
Email blasts and ask for replies when they're at your service desk. This week, the next 2 weeks, we're going to be asking about their interest, our customers' interest in this particular service, and just doing a tick sheet, right? Like these are the ways that you can get around to that, but you need to index your customers and then promote it on social media and in your email blasts. All right. I'm sorry, Bill, was that the end of your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I want to be just super thankful for you guys. This is an absolute pleasure. I'm running a body shop every day. I'm running everywhere, but thank you so much. Tyson, it was a pleasure meeting you, brother. Good luck to you.
You too, Bill.
Keep pushing, baby.
Yeah. You too, Bill, do you have do you have a page or a content that you want to promote that you want to talk about?
Sure. You can find me on Facebook at Bill_Vilele on Facebook and Bill_Vilele at Instagram, or True_Fix Auto Works on all the platforms.
Okay. All right. And Tyson, what about you? How do you want to wrap up? You want to talk about the podcast? You want to talk about the topic of alternate revenue streams, or any of the thoughts that you want to share to wrap up? What are your thoughts?
I don't really have anything too particular in mind, but I do want to say thank you for having me on, Brad. Thanks for reaching out about a month ago and giving me a chat. I know we had a good phone call personally.
Yep.
It was nice. Yes, I appreciated that.
No, I appreciate that. No, I think the big thing, I'm young, I'm still learning. One thing I've learned, I think the best thing I've learned, and I'll leave it with this, is focus on what you as a business can control, right? There's so many things that are beyond your control, right? But if you, as a business owner, just focus on what your core efficiencies are, what you can control, what you do very well, the rest will just go from there. I've been really very grateful and blessed for the growth of my family's business over the last few years.
Good.
Appreciate you reaching out on that. And I know part of that is my grandparents really didn't have any media footprint 8 years ago either. So the only reason you found me was because you were able to Google it, because we built up from some reputation over the past few years.
It did help.
So
right. But the way business was done in the 80s is drastically different. My
Crazy.
father
Just a little.
relied on the yellow pages.
I'm very blessed to have a full shop to get back to right now. I know a lot of people don't have that, and I really hope that the bill flips the other way, or you find ways to get that, because
Yep.
very blessed to have a very full shop right now.
Those sentiments are appreciated. Thank you. All right, that's a wrap for our episode of the Garage Grit. Thank you so much, and
These guys.
Thank you.
we'll keep talking. Thank you.